Hi, and welcome back to the Echoes podcast, where we share wisdom, establish identities, tell stories, and create echoes that last beyond the moment. Just as a recap, in the last episode, we talked about Sumitra, the bowl of rice pudding that was stolen off the balcony, how it traveled with the help of the wind god across thousands of miles to be dropped into the lap of Mother Anjana, and how it led to the original introduction of one of the most beloved characters of the Ramayana, that is Hanuman, and how that divinity has played back, that connection to Ram was there right from the beginning. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about the four brothers. So we'll track back to Ayodhya. The bowl of rice pudding is stolen by the bird, and Sumitra is devastated. And the queens really come together in this moment. So she goes to tell Kaikeyi, she goes to tell Kaushalya, and they all sit round. They all love each other very deeply, and they say, look, mistakes happen. It wasn't your fault, and let's think about a solution. So Kaushalya takes half of the rice pudding from her bowl. Kaikeyi takes half of the rice pudding from her bowl, and they put that into a new bowl for Sumitra. And they say, look, no need to tell the king, no need to tell the sages, no need to tell anyone. Let's just consume our, this divine gift that we've been given, and we'll be blessed with the children that we have. We all want to have children together. No one wants to be left out, and so they go about it that way. So they eat their rice pudding, and 9 months later, the children are born. So Kaushalya has Ram. He's the eldest child, brilliant in complexion. And then Bharat is born shortly after that. And then Sumitra has twins. So she has Lakshmana and she has Shatrughana. And today we're going to find out a little hidden story in the Ramayana about how the four brothers are connected and why it all of a sudden makes sense. Why do we always see Lakshmana next to Ram? Why do we always see Shatrughana next to Bharat? So the children are born generally fairly happy, beautiful children. They eat well, they play well. Generally, they're always together in the day. You can imagine them being looked after in their nurseries, playing with little toys, being cared for. But what they notice is when Sumitra takes Lakshmana and Shatrughana, the twins, back to her palace at night time, at bedtime, and those two boys start getting a little bit fussy, a little bit niggly. They don't sleep so well. They get quite cranky. On the other hand, Ram and Bharat are perfectly peaceful. The older two children, you can imagine they're probably quite well behaved. It's only really at sort of sleep times, whenever Lakshman and Shatrughana are separated from the other two boys, they get a little bit, unsettled, a little bit agitated. And so, natural for the parents to be worried and concerned, and they consult the doctors. So the royal doctors are called in to check the boys over. Are they having issues with their stomach? Is there something going on that's making the children upset? And the royal doctors say, well, there doesn't seem to be anything physically wrong with them. They're eating well, they're digesting their food, they're playing well, they're happy when we see them in the day. It's only really when it comes time to be separated and at sleep time, they seem to be very agitated, but we don't have a medical solution for this. And so the queens are, Sumitra is still worried. And so ultimately she says, well, if we can't rely on the doctors, then we're going to have to rely on a higher power to try and give us an answer to this. So she calls in sage Vashishta, the family guru, and she says, look, you've named these children, you've seen their futures, their pasts, their presents. Please help. Why are they so unsettled? We want our children to be, growing up feeling very happy. And so Sage Vashishta sits in his meditation. He has knowledge of past, present, and future. He can see time in a different kind of way. And he probably has a gentle smile on his face when he realizes And he speaks to the three queens and he says, "Queens, you all know what happened with the bowl of rice pudding, how two parts were shared out from Kausalya and Kaikeyi. And we don't need to go deeply into this and tell everybody, but what you should realize that the part of the rice pudding that has become Lakshmana came from Kausalya's bowl. And the part that has become Shatrughna came from Kaikeyi's bowl." So what we realize here, that the essence of Lakshmana is connected so deeply with the essence of that rice pudding that became Rama, that they just couldn't be. It was almost like they were the same person. It was almost like they had the same energy and current running through them. And so Lakshmana was becoming very agitated when he was separated from Rama. He just couldn't physically bear to be away from that particular brother. And the same with Shatrughna. So Shatrughna, the part of the rice pudding that has become Shatrughna, came from Kaikeyi's bowl. And so he's so deeply connected to Bharat, to that part of the rice pudding that became Bharat, that he feels physical discomfort from being separated from a part of himself. So what the sage advised is that when it comes time to sleep, I recommend that you put Lakshmana in Rama's crib and put Shatrughna in Bharat's crib and see what happens. See if that makes a difference. So the queens follow the advice, and as soon as Lakshmana is put down in Rama's crib and Shatrughna is put down in Bharat's crib, the boys become very quiet, very happy, very docile, happy to sleep, happy to play. All the niggles go away, all the tantrums go away. And Queen Sumitra realizes that yes, I've given birth to these two children, but they come from Rama and Bharat. And for the sake of the happiness of my children, I will always leave Lakshman in Kausalya's palace. I will always leave Shatrughna in Kaikeyi's palace. And as a mother, for the happiness of my children, I will happily run between the two palaces and see my children just grow with joy. And that is a small sacrifice of a mother towards the happiness of her children. It's just such a beautiful story of how that connection between Ram and Lakshman and Bharat and Shatrughna, and you see it echoed throughout the entire story in terms of how the two brothers are split and the two sets of brothers are split and how they spend their time. So thank you so much for joining in this week's story. I hope you enjoyed that one. And next time, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into Rama's childhood. And there's a few very sweet little incidences that happen in Rama's childhood that, when we hear these stories as children, we really connect to them. We look at whether it's Krishna as a child, Rama as a child, all of these God forms, when we engage in these stories as little children, we never forget them. So join me next time. And as again, if you have any questions that you want answering, any hidden stories, any deeper meanings, drop a note in the comment and I'll do my best to answer them. Join us next time.